We are back with Ask the Masters. We got Master Rick Chafey in the house with a couple of mics. Rick, what do you got going on? What are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking to a couple of very important pool builders that kind of cover the gamut. We've got obviously me. I'm with Red Rock Contractors and Red Rock Pools out of Arizona. We build 15 to 20 pools a year. Excuse me. Also have Mr. Michael Moore out of Louisiana. He's a 50 to 60 pool builder contractor. He's been in business now third generation in his family. So he's kind of went through the entire economic changes over the last 30, 40 years. And I also have Mike Church with Cody Pools out of Texas, Austin area mostly, but also got some offices in Florida. Mike Church's company is the largest pool builder in the country, doing about 1,000 pools a year. What we wanted to do today was bring those gentlemen into the podcast and give you an idea of what we're doing as companies, what we've learned from the last time we went through this roles, and kind of give everybody some feedback on what they might want to be doing to kind of work through obviously what's happened with the economy. So without further ado, let me introduce Michael Moore first. Michael Moore, give me a little bit of introduction on you, your company, how long you guys been in business, and how life in Louisiana is today.
Thanks, Rick. Michael Moore. I'm with Morehead Pools, like Rick said, that third generation. Been in business since 1960. We're kind of the gamut of medium-sized builder to smaller size, I guess. If you look at the whole country, we have retail, but we also have service and maintenance. So we've kind of got all three aspects. In Louisiana right now, we're rolling every day as an essential service provider. It seems to be a nice buzzword that we operate on daily. We do have a stay-at-home order right now in Louisiana. The entire state been impacted by all this craziness, much like other states have. But we're still rocking and rolling. Every day we wake up and we just kind of roll with the punches and react to anything that gets thrown our way. So,
awesome, Mr. Church, give me some input on you guys.
Okay, yeah, I'm Mike Church, President CEO of Cody Pools in Austin, Texas. Cody Pools has been around since 1994. I took Cody Pools over in 2003. We're based in Austin, Texas. We also have offices in Houston, San Antonio, and in Tampa, Florida. We are a little bit affected in certain areas. It's a stay-at-home guidelines that are taking place in certain cities, but majority of the cities we're able to still build and construct. We only build new pools. We don't do any service. So we're got restrictions going on in Austin, Texas for construction, but all the other cities that we're in, we're still able to construct pools at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think as an industry, we've been, or in the world, as far as construction is concerned, it's probably very unusual for us to be essential. I'm the last group that we thought we would have held on to and let us keep working, but I think it's hopefully critical in the essential part, trying to keep part of our economy moving, which is good for us. At the same time, we're looking at an economy that is very likely going to change dramatically, and it's obviously we're changing every day. Michael, you said we got to wake up and react every day. Instead of being able to plan ahead like we normally would as business owners, there's less planning nowadays to waking up in the morning, checking the news, checking the numbers, see what the Dow's doing, see how many people are now newly infected, what the federal government's going to do. So it's actually a broad new horizon for most of us that even used to get your head down and run your business. Now you got to wake up and figure out how can you keep your business running. So I think we're all in a very same boat. It seems like Arizona's a little more Wild West. I don't think we've had as many restrictions on us as some of the other states, but it's hotter here. It's wider, more wide open, kind of like Texas. We're not on top of each other, but let's talk through a couple things. Mike, you and me were talking earlier, business structure and planning. We've got a plan for the fact that we could have a pretty dramatic economic slowdown, especially in the production pool market, with home builders and production pool people likely going to be taking, probably less people out there purchasing luxury items and or even purchasing houses right now because they're afraid what last time this market collapsed, the housing market led us into the crash. And so I think probably wrongfully so, most people are presuming that immediately the housing market's going to collapse or shrink dramatically, which is going to slow down home purchases and new pool purchases. So as a business owner that's heavily seated in that market, Mike, what are you doing as a business in general terms to set yourself up and plan financially?
Well, what we did this week, we just started looking at the pools that we have under construction, ones that we can go forward and complete, and then what we have that's in our backlog to start, and did a 13-week cash flow analysis, just trying to see, hey, which situation we're going to be at. And then even even if we looked at and seen what the work process is going to go on, what cash we're going to come in, then also put a stress test to it. Like if less cash is going to come in, and then what we're going to have to pay out with our current payroll per week or overhead is what we try to do, just to see where we're at, on that, and just make sure we can preserve our cash. And then what any expenses we could cut back, any kind of advertising we're doing, should we put that on hold for a couple of weeks just to see what the market's going to do?
How about you, Mr. Moore? What do you guys make any dramatic changes in the last couple of weeks of how you're directing yourself in the mornings?
Yeah, absolutely. About a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, we're kind of in touch with a lot of local legislation people, state representatives, and then also some national congressman guys that are from our area that I'm personal friends with. So we saw, as Louisiana become the number 3 or 4 spike state in the country, right behind California, New York, and Washington, that we saw some things coming. So we began to do what Mike does, a stress test of, okay, if we get a mandatory lockdown, if you will, not even a stay at home, but everybody's shut down except hospitals and state workers or departmental things like that. What we needed and put a cash flow analysis on that. In construction, we tested out our builds that are contracted out again, ones we had in constructions, ones that are permitted, ones that we knew we could finish, ones we knew were going to go on hold. And so we went through that. But then also in our retail, we made our quick adaptations. We had some high-risk employees that we had conversations with about, their comfort level. And then some. So we actually suspended our operation in our satellite retail across the river in the city, Bossier City, which is adjacent to Shreveport here. And then funneled everybody to Shreveport retail, but then closed that showroom and went curbside only, much like you see restaurants and whatnot doing. Instilled our online ordering. We have an online text ordering, or a text order, and then a call-in order system. And we instilled free delivery, which is something we've not done. So free delivery anywhere we service pools through our maintenance division. And most of the time we're getting those out within 24 hours just to kind of react. We had the retail staff to keep them working, to occupy, and to kind of to staff our delivery department that we kind of created on the fly. And then our service and maintenance have just been running as usual, except for the precautionary measures we've given, gloves and protective gear, and made phone calls and email blasts, that are the things we're doing to protect our clients when we're in their backyard. And so far it's worked well. I mean, we haven't had any cancellations with our weekly maintenance of people. In fact, we've actually picked up people that don't want to mess with it. And then our delivery went live on Wednesday, and through Friday yesterday has proven to be decently successful so far.
I got to tell you guys, I went through this 3 times in my career, and 12 years ago when I went through it, I decided, okay, I need to put together a plan to close it up or sell it, which I inevitably did in late 2015. When we did go back and look at the numbers historically, this is a time of strength, and we were probably in many cases more profitable when things were tight, and we really needed to watch our numbers, because I think when times were good, we were off buying things and traveling and doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And so historically, I think this is a time to kind of tighten the belt, readjust, look at your employees. I remember 12 years ago, there was a little bit of middle management that I had to release, because it wasn't going to recover. I think this market kind of bouncing back a little bit. It's always different. Each time it's happened, this will be the 4th time I've seen it happen in my lifetime. There's an adjustment. So I think we'll come out of this stronger, and the numbers will look good.
Yeah, I think one of the things Mike talked about initially was cash flow, right? Cash flow analysis and what you have for cash. I think the hardest thing to manage through this system is making sure you have the cash flow in the bank to manage employees. And like you just said, Randy, you actually get stronger through this process. I've been in business now over 22 years, and I don't think I knew how to run a business till I got through the last recession. That taught me I had to backtrack everything. And we had money, we had cash flow all the time. There was always money in the bank. So when we need something, we bought a new truck. When we need a new piece of equipment, we bought a new piece of equipment. We never analyzed whether we should have bought it, what we should be spending on it, what we can afford to spend on it. And dramatically, the way the market changed, we didn't have a choice. The market collapsed so tightly on everyone. You had to figure out how to just get through life every day. And I think what companies need to do right now is take a huge focus on and make a plan of what's going to happen. Look at what you have. Obviously, I have pools under construction. Like you talked, what can I finish? Some of those are going to, if you're already almost done, you're going to get those to completion. You're probably going to get paid. You've got another set of pools that are just getting started. You've got to make a realization of how many of those pools are actually going to start, right? And make the worst case scenario. If I have 40 pools in the start program, let's cut that to 20. And what does that do to my cash flow and what I need for employees? And then what pools do I have that haven't even started yet that might not start that we've been planning for? Because what most people are looking in their cash flow too is we got work in process and then we have future work. Well, that future work could change dramatically, and we get to count a whole lot less on our future work, I would propose, than what's in the wheelhouse, and make sure we can manage as tightly as possible and hoard any cash we have. Anywhere we have cash that we can keep in the bank that we don't have to spend on advertising, on things that we're doing that were more luxury for the business, those got to be constricted pretty quickly, because once you run out of cash, the operations is much tighter.
No, I agree. I mean, that's one thing we're looking at is the cash and capital expenditures. Just like one of the things is we keep like 55 vehicles on the road every day, and we do rotate vehicles out at a certain mileage point, like 150,000 miles. We're moving that to 200,000 miles, so we don't have to worry about trying to spend any cash on vehicles that we were planning on prior to what's all taking place here. So we're trying to preserve all the cash, capital expenditures, anything we had some pool renovations, some of our display pools we were going to do this year, and now we're just putting those on hold just to see how things go, fall out the next. We're looking at cash for 13 weeks. So that's the way we're kind of looking at everything. And then we're also figuring, like you said, pools that we have on the pipeline and the backlog, what's going to happen. Like right now, we already know the city of Austin has pretty much stopped issuing permits or letting construction go forward. So we're having to take a look at that for that area, that this could be on hold for some time. And so we're taking that into place, considering what we already have under construction. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see, presumably we're going to see if a company like yours that, that does $100 million a year or more, you're going to see what happens, that you're not this month and next month and the next month, you're going to have a dramatic decrease in revenue and maybe not such a dramatic decrease in expenses, right? So you got to find a way to make your expenses as closely as possible match the revenue numbers, because the revenues are going to be off. No matter how we look at this, the fear in the public is going to be the problem. It's not going to be the lack of ability to do things or lack of ability to do work. It's going to be the fear of putting their money, just like we're talking, back into the economy. They want to keep their cash too. And so much of that is going to slow down, and we've got to adjust our numbers to manage through those next couple of months, knowing we're going to have a revenue decrease of some sort.
Exactly.
I was going to interject to pose a question that I've gotten a lot, and especially to you, Mike, as someone who's, our construction load, as far as we build 50 to 55 a year. So in construction, we don't have a huge, in the pipeline. We pretty much communicate with those people daily. When someone gets over that 100, 200 pools a year, 1,000 pools a year. So I've talked to a few people that are in that boat, that they say, hey, first of all, I'm going to call these people. I'm going to make sure their comfort level with us going forward, and to secure that, hey, I'm going to get paid, and that their money's still there. But then some people are fearful of that because they don't want to inject fear into the consumer's mind. Maybe that person was going to move forward, and that now if the builder is questioning whether or not we should move forward, maybe I should tighten up. What's your thoughts on that from a production standpoint of, do you call those contracts and just say, hey, are we still moving forward? Money's still good, et cetera? Or do you just kind of roll until somebody says stop?
Well, we're just rolling until somebody says stop, which we hadn't had happen yet. The only place that's caused us to stop was the city of Austin. Most of our home builders are, we're far enough along with their pool, they still want to finish it and still want to move forward in the backyard. And we did have, believe it or not, I think I looked yesterday, we had like 77 digs for the month of March, which is down from a year ago, March, probably about 25 pools, but it's not completely come to a stop. So we do have customers moving forward if we're allowed to. So it's not just been a complete cutoff right now at this point.
Well, we don't want to prepare for a complete worst either. And I think what's going to cause market collapse or market change is mostly people's mentality, not the reality, right? The fear in people's minds is what slows them down from putting money back in the market. And they obviously have to protect themselves as well. And so, if you're getting ready to buy a house or buy a pool and you think the real estate market values are going to decrease dramatically, that's going to slow down your consumer confidence to go out and buy a pool or spend the money on the house. And so that's what we got to be prepared for. And there's not an easy way to get around that. But I think I've talked to different builders just like everybody else. And you talk to one guy that says, I think everything's gonna be fine. And you talk to the next guy and know the world's gonna end and this is gonna be the worst we've ever seen it. I think we got to be very careful forecasting either of those positions, because I don't think this is unprecedented how this is happening. Nobody is seeing a dramatic change in our markets the way it happened now. I mean, this was almost overnight. We shut a switch off and said, okay, we're going to stop. Pretty much 90% of consumer product spending is going to come to an end. And we're also going to have a bunch of weird dips in the market. We're going to see retail sales for companies like Costco in this quarter be the best they've ever had, but it's going to be followed by one of the worst they've ever had, because now everybody's got so much inventory and stock on products that they're also not going to have to go to run to Costco next month and buy a bunch of toilet paper or canned goods or anything else. And so we're going to see some real weird market trends that are going to be spaced out in an odd fashion instead of following a slow trickle down and a slow come back out of the market. So I think the real thing to be doing, I think, is we have to be super dynamic and make adaptations every single day to what the market's going to do to us. And I think we got to make sure we keep our employees kind of in that same mindset. We've got to keep some positivity in the markets of what's happening, but we got to make sure that we kind of keep everybody, informed and safe. I think one thing companies need to be doing for sure is there is now specific postings you have to have out there for family safe leave acts and those kind of things. There's new postings that came out, I think, as early as yesterday that you can get online. Those have to be posted. They have to be in your office. All your employees need to realize what they're allowed to do, how much time they're allowed to take off. And we also have to be able to work around those things. Now, there's a lot of federal options to get reimbursed for a lot of those parts and pieces. So as a business owner, you're going to have to definitely start paying a lot. Many business owners put their head down and go out and clean pools or put their head down and go build pools. But as an owner, to get your business through much of this, you're going to have to put your heads up, look up, and see what are the opportunities being provided to the market at large, because there is going to be a lot of influx of opportunities to get some reimbursement for keeping employees when you can't, which is great for the economy and good for you if you can keep them on your payroll, whether you need them or not, as long as you can get the payrolls covered, as well as make sure you don't have any long-term effects with employees coming after you after the fact because you didn't do the right things to keep them safe. So there's a lot of those little nuances that maybe most people don't think they need to manage in a business that are added to our daily adaptations to what's going on.
Rick, to add to that a little bit, we're in it. I said I've been through this. This will be the fourth time. We now have a product that actually benefits people. People aren't going to jump on planes right now and head to Italy. They're not going to be traveling to South America, and so. While we're going through the same downturn, we now have a product where Michael's got 3 kids in his house and they're about to drive him crazy, right? So we've got a tool now to actually to help this situation. So whether it's service or building right now, we need to keep that positive. Michael, I think we need to keep that positive spirit going and say, hey, this staycation stuff is possibly where it's going to be at for the next 10 to 15 years until, we change this mentality. I mean, people are afraid to go to the market right now and they want to keep their people in their backyards, in their pools. So a little bit different this time. And I think we're going to recover as an industry faster than we did 12 years ago because it was just lockdown. We were a luxury item. Nobody cared. Nobody was buying vehicles and, they weren't going to buy pools 12 years ago. But I think the industry is going to be in better shape this time.
To your point, Randy, I think you talked about the last 4 times that you've been through it with being a veteran of the industry. This is unprecedented. The best thing I heard and have seen the comparison is take 08 and 01, September 11th, and just kind of mix them up. And it's that, but even it's different then too. And you're right with, we're doubling down on community with our marketing. We've cut back obviously from our marketing of our traditional. We have repurposed that and reallocated that money to the doubling down on community. I know in our local market, local restaurants, local small shop business, from our retail and our service stand, we're just doubling down on that message of, we're trying to, that brand loyalty we want to come out of this with is what we're kind of pushing huge even in our construction division, in our overall branding. We just want to come out of this with a little bit more brand loyalty and just, we want the consumer just to say, you know what, they double down on our local community. So we're going to be there when they come out of it.
The one thing that seems different this time around than what I went through in 2008 with the financial crisis is that came to more of a halt. You know, the market for us in that industry kind of came to a pretty much stop. We are still seeing a lot of activity, even from leads coming in this week. I mean, we're not gone to completely zero, but we still had a good amount of people inquiring about for pools, and we're putting bids out there, which is more so than I remember in 08. I mean, it's down 20 or 30% this week on our leads, but we still have them out there, and we have people still moving forward with pools in the construction. So that's kind of more optimistic this time around than what I've seen before.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to, we're feeling, especially in the construction side, we've been able to seemingly keep the construction industry alive through this, which because of that, and kind of what Michael pointed out too, is back to community. We've been trying to do as much as we can here. Look, we're the few businesses that are still operating and running in the same format we were, or relatively close to where we were 2 weeks ago. And if you compare that to restaurants and stores and hotels and hospitality situations, they're not. And so as you're working on giving back to our communities, we're doing the same thing. And what can we be doing now that helps our community and our employees? We're buying takeout for lunches from local restaurants, where we send our crews home on a Friday, each one of them with a big package of frozen goods from one of what was a restaurant company that we've done construction for, as well as our friends with, but they've had to turn themselves into other things. We've tried to help them take advantage of that. And I think playing off that, as well as to Randy's point, look, we are the staycation event. We are allowing you to be able, now that everybody's trapped in their houses. This is probably not the first time this is going to happen, right? This is one of what could be many times of going through a similar situation. And each time we do it, it's going to change the way people react. But I think we need to make sure that there's a great place to be and you're able to enjoy yourselves at your houses. And we can use that and parlay that into our marketing as well. And the fact that this might be the best investment you ever make, so that when these things are happening in the future, you have a place to be and be happy.
I think to go back to Randy's point too, to circle back and it's encouraging to hear him say when he came through these other ones, how he came out better. That's been the general message with local business owners that I've talked with this week here locally, but then also our leadership meetings that we're continuing to have on a more than a weekly basis, on a daily basis sometimes with all of our departments, is we're going to be leaner and we're going to be better coming out of it. And it's really forcing us to focus on every minor detail. And so if we look at that and you know, on that positive side of it, hey, we're just going to be better and more efficient. It's actually forcing us to do things that we kind of thought about doing several years back, whether it be free delivery or curbside pick, you know, those things, it'd be cool to do in a pool store. They probably wouldn't work in a pool store. You know, we didn't have the courage to do it. This is forcing us to do it. And we may come out of it going, why didn't we do that years ago? It makes total sense. So, you know, we're going to change coming out of it. We're going to look different, but I think that's going to be in a better way.
I'd agree, Michael. And we're already seeing just within the last 2 weeks, a different way to go about things. So this is becoming the normal now. Zoom, GoToMeeting, all of that. The sales process, I think, you know, taking the time to learn automation right now, whether you like Zoho, Salesforce, HubSpot, and get some of that automated. People, I don't think, are going to want to be with sit-down salesmen as much. And so there is going to be a turn in 2020 to where, you know, you maybe are taking your takeoffs off of Google Maps and you're delivering your pool designs via the internet and monitoring when people are watching it and communicating a little bit more in this. This system works real well for busy clients too. The husband's working maybe somewhere and the wife's working somewhere, and you can pull them together in this medium. So I think the sales process, we need to be, you know, we need to be able to move and adjust radically fast. And I think it's going to change. You're going to see a lot more automation and, you know, sales funnels start to develop too, that carries the client along the journey, which may make some adjustments in your sales force too, to keep the same numbers. So it's you know, I think we got to go into it and be excited, because we know that we're going to come out lean and we're going to come out smarter. And that's what survival is all about.
Well, I think we're all going to learn. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we've seen that already take place this week, where more video conferences are being done between our clients and between our customers and our staff. You know, there's more video conferences going on, requests for that, especially with a second follow-up. If they have gone out and measured the backyard, they're doing the follow-up instead of being in one of our offices. They're doing video conferences on it.
Well, I think we'll find, you think about how much more efficient this country is operating today. If you look at the traffic on the freeways, you look at how, Michael Moore, you might not get a kind of traffic we get, but you look at Phoenix and LA, and I've been in Phoenix, LA, and Dallas since this started. And it's obviously a little scary how quiet it is, but the reality of we've all are learning how, holy cow, I can actually have 4 of my employees, like we currently do, 4 of my office staff are working from home. Never wanted to really do that, right? Like, it's kind of scary. You don't know if I'm going to get the same efficiencies out of them. But if you start looking at how you could operate your business differently, I would need a lot smaller office if I had half of my staff working from their homes, right? So would that be less expensive to me? Probably. Would they be more efficient? I don't know. They should be. They're going to save a few hours a day not traveling. Salespeople not going to houses as often, doing this video conference and things. I mean, it's definitely going to change the way we run our business, but we should be learning from it for sure. We got to make sure it's that face to face, and I want to make sure. And the one thing that scares me, as I was talking about the other day, is I feel like everybody's already the younger generations didn't know how to look somebody in the eye, shake their hand, and be polite and correct. But now I think it's going to get even worse, because now all of us walk in and kind of like, hey, here's my elbow, stay 6 feet away. I think we're going to interpersonal communication and face to face is a pretty powerful tool. So we got to make sure we don't lose that. But I think we're going to learn from this that we've got to find a reason to be much more efficient. We can do, if I didn't have to travel between 6 different meetings, I've had way more meetings this week, the last couple of months and last couple of years in my business, but I get quite a bit more done now because I'm sitting at my desk and I'm not driving or waiting for them to show up. And then I'm not bullshitting with somebody at the end of it for 20 minutes or an hour. It's surprisingly, we're going to learn from this a lot. I want to get into a couple things that are just clearly specific things that you guys are going to be doing. You already done, you're going to do this week, you're going to do the next coming weeks as you focus on this change. And so let's talk about what specific things, Mike, you've done, and Michael, you've done to immediately start changing expenses out the door, and what things you're actually, in worst case scenarios or worst scenarios, what are the next steps you might have to take to keep maintaining where you're at?
Well, I mean, what we've taken the steps, as I said earlier, is just to manage the cash flow, and we've pushed back some advertising that we normally would do, because right now this is the peak of our season for advertising, and we just put everything on a 2-week hold on the advertising just to look at it and see what the situation is in 2 weeks. But it's the main thing we've done, looking at the cash, and then, as I said earlier, capital expenditures like new vehicles, anything like that, we just put all that on hold.
How about you, Mr. Moore?
Well, the first thing we did, which we don't, guilty as charged, I don't monitor overtime as much. I'm always let's just get the job done. I don't care what it takes. If you got to close a service ticket out and got to go till 6 and that pushes you over, just do it. Let's get it done. Move on to the next one. More about ticket processing. Well, what we've done is we've really focused on overtime, on being efficient, and also, and we're having those small group meetings, departmental meetings with our staff that, hey, we want you to get a full 40 hours. Again, coming out of this with a consumer for brand loyalty, we want to come out of it with loyal personnel and staff. And right now we see that. I mean, most of our just every day I'm just glad we're open. I'm glad I got a job. And because, the restaurant service industry in our market, thousands and thousands of people don't have jobs. And so we reiterate to them that we got to keep an eye on overtime. But we want work, and we want to keep everybody working, and we don't want to go to a shift of 20 to 30 hours a week. We want full, but we got to monitor the overtime with expenses. And then we've looked at our advertising. April and May are big months. March, we've already kind of knee deep in and already done some pre-buys and some stuff that we do. But we've looked at April and May, and we've taken those budgets and not necessarily cut them, but mostly cut them. Maybe 75%, 25% down to about 75% of what we would have spent, but we've moved it to more social because we just feel everybody's on their devices. They're going to be on social platforms, monitoring the news. So we're really doubling down on that. Same message. We've changed our message a little bit. We don't want to be more, we just, again, community feel that we're here, staycation kind of themed, let us, take care of your stuff so you can just relax. Basically, we want to contribute to less stress in your life because of our product and what we do and what we offer. But that's the main 2 things that we've done with our staff, and then towards the consumer.
Michael, I think you're dead on. And for those of you watching this, if you are not monitoring your channels, your social channels, many people are communicating through social channels right now. So you need to have whoever answers your phone, they need to be watching the Facebook feeds and messaging. They need to be monitoring Instagram DMs, LinkedIn messages, because these messages now come from multiple different directions. So I think that's a super smart move, is to work your social media, because that's where people are living right now. They are social, and they're all on different channels. Your older group's going to be on Facebook. Your younger group's going to be on Instagram, and they're going to want to communicate with businesses through that. You need to watch Twitter feeds, and that's unusual. I mean, I think for the pool industry to recognize that, hey, I've got all these other channels, that it's just not the phone anymore that people need to communicate with. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, I think business management is going to be key when we get to, I know, Mike, you kind of picked up on, you've got a 13-week look ahead for your cash flow. I think everybody's got to start figuring out and looking at the scenarios of when if the revenues decrease over time, what can they manage for staffing, and how can they manage them, and how can they cut, cutting overtime is going to save on those things. It's really critical. What I believe from the last time we did this is you have to be watching that quickly, because you have to adapt quick. Larger companies for sure, but those numbers, if they change dramatically, if your revenue numbers are going to change dramatically, you have to make sure you understand how that affects your cash flow and your incomes. And most companies, me included, for years and years and years, were never watching those pieces of our business, because it was too, and especially the last 3 to 5 years, for most of the people in the pool industry, we've gotten very, very lackadaisical on what it takes to run the business side of the business, because it was too easy. Leads were coming in all the time. You could be a terrible pool builder, you could be terrible in responding, and you could still get plenty of pool work out there and walk and keep your business going. And everybody's got to recognize that potentially is going to change. We might, at this stage, it's not doom and gloom. We've been able to keep our industry in a pretty good spot, but we haven't felt the impact of the economic change in the markets yet, because most of what we're working on today is what we already had sold and what we already had planned. Those future work that's coming up, those revenues could change dramatically, and we have to be looking at that quickly and make adaptations quickly, because you can quickly overrun and not keep up with what's happening with your income levels based on your cash flow and your sales. And if your sales drop 20, 30, 40%, if it depends on where your margins are at, you've got to make dramatic changes to your expenses on a quick basis. And so I know, as a company, for me, we did not react quick enough last time. We were probably cocky at some level, but also just weren't paying enough attention. But we just thought, we're going to get through this. We're better than the rest. We can keep selling. And we did. We picked up more work, to be honest with you, in the early downturn, but none of that work was profitable. And it was also work that we weren't efficient at. We went from doing the type of pools that we normally do, and we started getting into the production sector, because some of the production builders were going under. Well, we were picking up their work, but we didn't realize how inefficient we were at doing that type of work. And it really hurt us. We did millions of dollars worth of revenue on new projects and thought we were okay when we looked at our revenue numbers, but we weren't watching our income and cash flow. And we actually built a much bigger hole for our company financially than we were already going to be in the first place, without taking that work, if we had just adjusted. So it's critical to really start paying attention to the financial side of how your business runs, and be very, very stingy on your cash. You've got to pothole that wherever you can, and minimize. As dumb as, we have an air conditioned warehouse at my facility here. I got 6,000 square feet of air conditioned warehouse. You know what we probably won't be doing this summer? Keeping that very cool. Just dumb stuff that you used to just let happen that you're not paying attention to. You can make a dramatic change in your overhead costs and your expenses pretty quickly, but you've got to make very quick adjustments. If the market changes quickly, you better be moving twice as fast as the market change.
No, I agree. And I mean, that's the whole key is, cash is king. And that's what we're looking at every day, just to see the situation, but also making sure we maintain, we book in orders, so we know what we're going to look like in 3 or 4 months down the road. So we're cautious about that too, and trying to keep that. But one of the things that's a little bit different for us, even though we're a production builder, we're not tied to the housing market. 95% of our business is existing homeowners. So it's people that are staying home, staycation, who want to move forward. So I do feel it's not as bad as was 2008, because we were tied a lot to home construction, new home construction. This time we're tied more existing homeowners. So I feel it's a little bit better. I feel it's a little bit better conditions this time around.
Well, I think that's an important note to make, is to make sure you have some diversity in what you're doing. I think we're a construction company and a pool company that made us diverse enough to adapt. But I think to that point is you got to make sure that you've heard the term, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're in the builder only market, which some production builders do, 90% of their business is through the builder only market. That one market change can make a huge impact to your entire business bottom line. And obviously, Mike, you guys learned that. So you adjusted your business to do a similar amount of revenue, but you spread that revenue in a bunch of different markets. And so it wasn't tied to just one phase of our business. And I think, Mike, you're the same way. Michael, you're the same way. You've got to keep your client base diverse enough that an impact to one doesn't take down the entire business, because that often happens in construction industries. You get tied into either one home builder, for instance, or one type of market, being like home builder only markets. If you're not diversifying somewhere, like Michael, you have service as well, as where service seems to hang around a lot longer than construction does sometimes, even when the market changes. It's important to kind of start looking at how you can diversify that way to make sure you don't set yourself up for immediate failure because your market segments decided to change their mind.
Yeah, on the sales standpoint of that, I think it's going to become vitally important on our end, having service and retail, is to utilize the term mining our existing clients for revenue. Making sure that, that 400 a week pool maintenance clean that we have, mining that existing for work. What do they need? What can we help them with? How can we reiterate to them of what our full offering is, and tying that, and in the flywheel kind of marketing aspect is making sure they push revenue to retail, making sure retail pushes it to service and maintenance, by making sure everybody knows what every department can do for the client when they come in the door, and mining that existing customer as they walk in.
You're absolutely right. And with that flywheel profile, I like that, the relevance to that, because Rick, had made a massive mistake back in 2008, 2009, and I was working for spec builders, and spec builders were about 25% of what I was building for. And they were some far out crazy cool pools hanging off the hillsides. But man, when they went down, they shut projects down for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And, I was heavily, they were covering payroll for a lot of time. So, Mr. Moore, your flywheel aspect, there was a certain extent, and as I recovered, I went back to all of those particles flying around in that hurricane. Everybody I'd worked for before, I'd go backwards in my emails and reach out and touch those people, mining those individuals and saying, hey, how is your pool? Is everything okay? Anything you need? And sure enough, so that's where you're going to really be able to pick up your market share right now. It'll be huge. So yeah, we've moved from what was a sales funnel into basically a flywheel, meaning that you've got all these particles flying around and you're just trying to get them down in and keep them tight. So yeah, that's a great analogy. I like that.
Mike, what are you looking at? Are you guys have anything in plans in your business of how you're going to expand marketing, meaning expand that funnel or that flywheel? Where are you going to go to try to make sure you're picking up more work if you need to? Are you guys starting to make those kind of plans as well?
We're just making those plans now. I mean, as I told earlier about our advertising, we haven't cut our advertising budget completely. We still don't social media focus on that. When I say we cut advertising, that was TV, because that's an expensive market. But as far as us trying to expand, right now we're just trying to, keep a pace what we're at right now. We're not trying to do any kind of expansion in, new areas or new territories. We're just moving ahead with the current business that we have, and just kind of keeping what we have locked in.
Wow, this has been super informative, gentlemen. I can't tell you how great it's been. Here, Mike, I know you're out in Austin, and Michael, you're down in Shreveport. Is that right?
Right.
Perfect. What do you think, Rick?
I think that was great. I think what we'll do, guys, is we might plan to do this again here shortly. We've got, because the market keeps changing so dramatically for us, and these new changes are happening on a regular basis. I want to solicit the opportunity to bring you guys back, because we might stomp all over what we just talked about and make bigger changes than what we just did because we have to. Or we might be in a position to be talking about how things are going better, or how to apply those things, those specific changes we've done as businesses. I think there's a lot of wisdom here to spread out to the pool world. And I think the best thing we've started to do, and Mike, you and me talked about this a little bit, is, reach out to the rest of the pool builders in your area too, as the cities start ganging up against you, or public gangs up against you, or whatever you guys need to do to help each other keep their doors open and keep building projects. At this point, we're not really competing specifically with each other, but we certainly can work together as a team to help this industry keep going. It's the whole point of Ask the Masters podcast, is bringing masters like you guys into the studio so we can have a conversation face to face. I mean, most pool builders wouldn't know how to talk to a guy that's the #1 pool builder in the country as far as volume, and find out what he sees as important and realize that they got to pay attention to that. So I appreciate you guys both coming in this morning. It's very likely going to do this again, but this is your first foray at it, Mr. Church, but I know Michael Moore, you've done a couple of these with us. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, for sure.
Safety with Red Rock Pools and Spas and Ask the Masters. Have a good weekend.
Okay, you guys take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.